Greetings and welcome to the Open-Minded Skeptic podcast. My name is Sharon Ann Rowland and I'm your host. Today we will be discussing UFO disclosure, in particular the 2014 Citizens Hearing on Disclosure. A special event was held in Washington, D.C. between April 29th and May 3rd in 2014 at the National Press Club. It was called the Citizens Hearing on Disclosure. So what happened at this hearing? Well, a powerful group of researchers and military and agency witnesses testified for 30 hours over the 5-day period before 6 former members of the US House and Senate on their varied experiences and knowledge of the ET Truth embargo. The motto for this event was, "If Congress will not do its job, the people will." The disclosure hearing attempted to accomplish what the US Congress had failed to do for the past 50 years, or 45 back in 2014. It failed to seek out facts surrounding the most important issue of this or any other time: contact. The following people testified: Stephen Bassett, Executive Director of the Paradigm Research Group; John Callahan, former Division Chief of the Accidents and Investigation, FAA; Grant Cameron of Canada, author and UFO researcher; Dr. Anthony Choi from Peru, UFO researcher and interviewer; Peter Davenport, Director of the National UFO Reporting Center; Stanton Friedman, a retired nuclear physicist and professional ufologist who resides in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, and is the original civilian investigator of the Roswell incident; Jay Javard of Brazil, the founder and editor of the Brazilian UFO magazine; Stephen Greer, MD, an American ufologist and retired traumatologist who founded the Center for the Study of ET Intelligence, or CSETI for short, and of course his own disclosure project, which seeks the disclosure of allegedly classified secret UFO information; Paul Hellyer, a Canadian engineer, politician, writer and commentator who has had a long and varied career; Gary Hesseltine from the UK. In 2002, Gary launched an unofficial national database for police officers reporting UFO sightings, and he is the current founder and editor of UFO Truth magazine. Antonio Hunas, he's an Open Minds investigative reporter. He's covered the UFO field from an international perspective for over 30 years. Dr. Roger Lear, one of the very few individuals to perform surgical procedures on supposed alien abductees. Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr., Denise and Jesse Marcel III. That's the son, granddaughter and grandson of World War II combat pilot and Army intelligence officer Major Jesse Marcel, who was called to the desert just outside Roswell to investigate a mysterious object that had crashed from the sky. Roberto Pinotti, author of UFO Contacts in Italy, Volume 1, 1907 to 1978. Nick Pope of the UK, formerly the British Minister of Defence. Donald Schmidt, former co-director of the J. Allen Hynek Center for UFO Studies in Chicago, where he served as Director of Special Investigations for 10 years. Daniel Sheehan, JD, is an attorney, activist and defender of social justice. Dr. Sun Shili, People's Republic of China. Dr. Shili is a leading UFO researcher in China. He helped start China's first UFO research organization and was able to get the Chinese government to print his first UFO journals. I'd love to know how he did that. It was fabulous. Steve Allen, a 50-year-old pilot who was involved in the Stephenville UFO wave. He was actually one of the citees. Dr. Robert Wood, an aerospace engineer veteran that blew the whistle on UFOs. Richard Dolan, who is an author, historian and radio host, and who has dedicated the last 2 decades, probably 2.5 decades, to uncovering the truth about UFOs. Linda Moulton Howe, an Emmy Award-winning TV producer, reporter and editor of EarthFiles.com, and of course an investigative reporter. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Apollo astronaut. There was also additional testimony from retired military. Sergeant John Burroughs, Captain Bruce Fenstenmacher, Major George Filer III, Lieutenant Colonel Richard French, Sergeant Jim Peniston, Captain Robert Salas, Captain David Schindel, Sergeant David C. Scott, Jeffrey Torres for Dr. Milton Torres, Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Randall, and from Uruguay, Colonel Ariel Sanchez, and from Peru, Colonel Oscar Santamaria. So who was on the committee? We had 5 congressmen / woman and 1 senator. Congressman Roscoe G. Bartlett came out of a brief retirement to run for Congress in 1992. He was elected to serve the citizens of the 6th Congressional District for 10 terms to the U.S. House of Representatives. He served as a citizen legislator, not a politician. Congressman Merrill Cook was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah, the son of scientist Melvin A. Cook, who pioneered the slurry explosives. Congresswoman Darlene Hooley represented Oregon's 5th Congressional District for 6 terms in the House of Representatives. A native of North Dakota, she spent 8 years teaching high school before entering politics when she was elected to the West Linn, Oregon City Council in 1975. Senator Mike Gravel was born in Springfield, Massachusetts, to French-Canadian immigrants. Mike Gravel served in the Alaska House of Representatives from 1963 to 66 and as Speaker from 65 to 66. He then represented Alaska in the U.S. Senate from 1969 through to 81. Congresswoman Caroline Kilpatrick is the founder and managing partner of J&A Global Partners. Prior to establishing J&A Global, Ms. Kilpatrick was a member of Congress for 14 years, serving Michigan's 13th Congressional District. And lastly, Congresswoman Lynn Woolsey retired from the U.S. Congress this year, or in 2014, having served as the representative for California's 6th District for 10 terms in the House of Representatives. Okay, I'm now going to play you the trailer for your listening pleasure.
The conclusion I've come to is incredibly wild, that those in charge have been successful in keeping secret the greatest story of mankind.
The evidence is overwhelming that Earth is being visited by intelligently controlled extraterrestrial spacecraft.
The CIA guy standing next to me says, we're confiscating all this data and you're all sworn to secrecy.
They've all been studying this. They have more data than I do.
So the government has dumped disinformation and misinformation into the field for decades. They've undermined research.
I have lost faith in representative government. I truly think we're in gridlock. It doesn't work, and so we need to make a change.
I think it's ignorant of any people not to seek out what we need to know to continue the universe.
You give this committee a lot of reasons for us to say, open those files.
You're walking up to it and you touch it. What do you do? Touch it that? Do you grab it? Tell us about that.
Okay. I started doing the walk around 360 of the object. And as I came around, I seen there was an inscription on the front, and
This is what you saw, right?
that's what I saw. So I started walking around the craft, and I seen the glyphs, and as I ran my hand from the fabric of the craft, it was smooth to touch.
You ran your hands along it?
Oh yeah.
I believe that the time is now to lift the veil of secrecy that has shrouded this subject for over 60 years, and the subject of UFOs should now be openly accepted in the mainstream media.
They exist, they are here to save us against the insanity of our leaders.
I agree with you. They should open those Roswell files.
There's only one way to regain trust. Find and tell the truth.
If it's out there, if it's real, we have a right to know.
Interesting stuff, isn't it? Well, it fascinates me. Now, I would recommend anyone that wishes to get into this field that they put a weekend aside and log into www.citizenshearing.org and start the testimony at the beginning and listen and just listen and just listen. It will give you a very good grounding in ufology. And at the end of listening to all of these witnesses and their stories, I hope that their words will assist you to open up your mind to the reality that not only your government, but also my government, has been keeping information about UFOs hidden for over a century. Thank you. Well, that's all for our podcast. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a positive review over on iTunes for the open-minded skeptic. My team and I look forward to entertaining you once again in our next podcast. To check when our next podcast is, simply head over to www.tomspod.com. That's www.tomspod.com.